Yes, today we have another tier list video for Deadlock. You might be wondering, why am I listening to this random duck on the internet? Well, I'm a current analyst for a Deadlock team, and I've done a lot of analysis in other games and coaching and various things as well. So I try to give my best takes from what I see. Of course, my opinion can be completely different from your own, which is perfectly fine. But that's enough yapping, let's dive straight in. So for once, I'm actually recording on OBS, so this might be a little bit scuffed, but we shall see. So starting off this tier list, we begin with Abrams, and just like always, S, A, B, C, D, and then I have like a niche category, so characters you may or may not pick. So let's get started. So Abrams. The thing about Abrams is he's in a little bit of a weird spot right now. He's definitely good. Like, don't get me wrong, I think every character in this game is super viable, but with Abrams, he's still a super reliable tank that excels at creating space. You know, his strengths lie in strong frontline, good disruption, but I think the weaknesses that this character emphasizes or highlights is that your teammates need to capitalize on all of that space you're making and the plays you're making. So I think in coordinated team play or higher ranks, you find a lot more success. Whereas in the lower ranks, maybe Phantom and lower or whatever you want to call it, he's going to be getting a lot less impact just based on how this character needs to play and operate. So I think putting him in the mid tier of B, just not super amazing, not super bad, you know, just good. Like, he's a good pick if you want to pick up a frontliner right now. So he's probably sitting around the B tier, at least for me. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to Apollo. So Apollo is an interesting one. So I think he's good. Like I've been saying this time and time again, I think this character is good. And I don't think this will ever change. My statement will never change. Especially with the recent changes, he's even better than some may, think about. He still does a ton of damage in lane. You can build him more gun emphasized now because of his change to his disengaging sigil. Again, the thing about this character, slowing hex can shut him down, but you still get your riposte or riposte. I think this character C. I think this character, or he fits in a niche category where I've seen players be really good with this character despite the changes. That's why I think like this character and a lot of the other characters has potential to do a lot of different things, mainly based on how their kit operates, and you have to have a deep understanding of the character to pull off some aspects of it. Again, ton of damage in lane. His ultimate still does a lot of damage. His flawless advance still does a lot of damage. His gun scales extremely well and does a lot of base damage, so you can buy Headhunter and start building into that as well. So I think he's mediocre. He's not amazing. He's not the worst. I still think he's good though. Again, right now the meta is kind of leaning more towards, instead of giant team fight oriented fights, big AoE circles, you're looking more at whoever wins the third urn, which is around the 20-minute timer, pretty much wins the game. Because with that third urn and that timer, the respawn timers are long enough for you guys to get mid boss and this pretty much win the game. That's why you need really strong ultimates and a lot of damage dealers around that 20-minute mark, and this character can scale extremely well and be ridiculously strong at 20 minutes if played correctly. So that's why I'm leaning more towards he's in a decent spot. Moving on to Bebop. So Bebop, at least for me, is still really good. I think the changes to this character in terms of his gun scaling wasn't necessarily that impactful. It's definitely making him a lot less, he's not as strong as he once was, but that doesn't change anything despite him, in terms of damage and everything like that. Yes, less damage. He still does a decent amount of spirit damage because they buffed that, but he's definitely shifted more into a sort of pseudo tank. You can build him more into the green items now. He lives a long time. He does a lot of damage. You can either build spirit and build passively with bombs and just be tanky overall, or you can still build gun. The gun change wasn't that significant to warrant him in a super, bad spot. So I think he's still in a decent spot. So I'm thinking more leaning towards the B spot, at least for me. Moving on to Billy. So Billy is insane. I think Billy is a very good character right now. I think this character excels in pretty much every aspect, and he's probably the strongest frontliner / tank in the entire game. Unlike many tanks, he can transition into a carry role through gun or spirit builds if necessary, And why he's so strong is that he's extremely versatile, he has a ton of strong frontline presence, and he can carry games when ahead. He has a lot of different options of how you want to build the character. If you're looking into the Alchemic Flask side of things, there's going for massive debuffs with your ultimate, or you're leaning more into the punch, traditional ability build, or you're leaning in more of the spirit / gun build. This character excels in pretty much every scenario, and I think there isn't a world where this character shouldn't be picked. And if you're trying to pick up a frontliner for the first time, understanding and learning Billy will be a massive help to yourself and to the rest of your team. Because a good Billy, if left unchecked, can be completely dominant, to say the least. So I'm leaning more towards the A category. I don't like having a ton of characters in the S category because I think it defeats the whole purpose of the S. But I think in terms of looking at how good this character is, it's probably sitting anywhere between A+, S-. Like I said, don't want to put a ton of characters in S, at least in my perspective. Moving on to Calico. So Calico, very good. I think Calico is really, really good right now. So the thing about Calico is, and why she's so good, is that people realize that her ability points, her order, doesn't really matter. All you really care about is her Ava form and the buffs that you get with Ava form, and just how you build the character now. You're looking more at building Soul Shredder bullets, Mystic Shot, things like that, just to do a lot of burst damage. Like I said, you're mainly playing for the buffs around this character in Ava form. You're not looking at the slash, not really the Gloom Bombs. You're looking at her Ava and her ultimate. So she got a ton of buffs. She's a super snowbally-esque character to where you want to be roaming around the map with Trophy Collector, getting those stacks, getting super strong, super ahead early so that you can scale into the late game. You can build her more spirit leaning, but you can also build her more gun leaning as well once you start getting into those late games. The big thing you need to keep in mind is that she falls off if she can't get ahead. That's why this character relies on you roaming a ton, getting a lot of kills, getting strong, and maintaining that strength all throughout the match. The second you start falling behind, the character starts to fall off, just like a lot of different characters, but Calico in specific tends to fall off if you're not able to maintain that high pace and high tempo. So I think this character in a lot of different aspects sits from the A tier category, maybe S tier, but I might move that a little bit further on. Moving on to Celeste. So Celeste, they haven't really changed anything with her abilities, I don't believe, in recent time. A couple patches. Like I said, this character has everything: mobility, damage, survivability, and disruption. She can easily win lane, dominate the mid game, and remain effective in the late. She's strong because she has high mobility, consistent damage, and she's rather difficult to punish because it's hard to catch her unless you're building items like knockdown or slowing hex. Usually knockdown is the best option. But I think her ultimate and just the playmaking potential with this character just outweighs the negatives and the cons about this character. So I think she's probably sitting A. There's a lot of A tier characters, which is a little bit scary. But that's kind of what I'm thinking for that, at least. Moving on to Doorman. I think Doorman still sits in the same realm of Celeste and stuff, is that he was slightly nerfed with the door not being able to close instantly, so you can't necessarily pull off the instant kidnaps. Yes, he can take you to Walker, but he can't close the door in time for you to walk out of it. So there is some give and take if you're able to escape if you buy items like Dispel, Indomitable, and even Counterspell, as well as Unstoppable. Those are kind of the differences. He's still super oppressive because of his, like I said, door mechanic, and just his map presence alone with his door allows him to be pretty much anywhere on the map at all times. Again, super difficult to play against. He has a ton of great utility. He has super strong objective control, and in general can do a lot of damage. So again, I think this character is sitting around the A tier. Is probably my thought process, at least for that. Moving on to Drifter. What do I think about this character? He got some changes a couple of changes ago to, they gave him back some of his damage that was kind of taken away from him, sadly. But I think how this game is right now, how team fight oriented it is, the Drifter finds little to no value with his ultimate, at least, because if your team is stacked on top of each other, like, you're pretty much going to be knowing where enemies are, or his ultimate's not going to be getting value because if all of your teammates are stacked on top of one another, it only blinds 3 enemies. If you're having 6 enemies on top of one another, they're just going to be able to call out where they are and how to position properly. So basically, he's a character with 3 abilities now. And the 3 abilities might not necessarily be the strongest, because one of his abilities is just a passive. His second ability is an active skill shot that you have to land. So that's already, tanking some of, his damage potential. And then his one, he has to be relatively close. And when you have to get relatively close to characters like Billy, like Abrams, like other frontliners, Drifter kind of struggles in that realm. And I think for that instance, he falls more towards the D area in my eyes. Yeah, probably D. That's what I would say. Okay, moving on to Dynamo. So with Dynamo, again, his entire identity revolves around his black hole. I think the earn system right now allows him to be useful in certain scenarios. I think this character in MM relies on a lot of the different win conditions and other factors playing into it. The character struggles on his own, so he has to have some sort of frontline or some sort of other pressure to kind of distract the enemy to allow him to get his full potential out. So I view him as more of a niche pick right now. He's good, but you're not really seeing him that much. I don't think there's really enough data, because in my eyes, I've seen a lot of plays of my friends playing Dynamo and getting a lot of value in Infernus lobbies, but I think there has to be certain circumstances where this character can find value. Because like I said, if comps aren't right, and in MM, they're usually not the best, the character will find, trouble. He won't be at his true potential. That's why I say he's more on the niche side. He still has potential, but he's just not as necessary right now. But still a really good pick in my eyes. Except all characters can be used in some sort of way. You just have to adapt your playstyle based on who you're playing against. And I think characters that are on the lower tiers struggle against the characters that are currently, in quotations, meta. But that's just my viewpoint. Moving on to Graves. So Graves, what do I think about Graves? She got a ton of nerfs, and I think the nerfs really reduce her effectiveness. She is a character that's kind of like a team check in my eyes. Not necessarily a stat check character, but it's like a team check and macro check. Are you aware of where the Graves is pushing? Are you able to make sure it shut her down, that she isn't getting a ton of value? Another big thing is that they nerfed her minions that she sends out, not her skulls, but the, whatever, her ultimate. You get more souls from them now when you shoot them. Same with McGinnis. So actually playing into a Graves is nice, because you can get your carry in the lane that she has her ultimate and just farm a ton of souls. That's why she's like good and bad. She can still have that split push potential, but she literally just feeds your carries because she provides so much farm and souls. I think she probably sits around the D tier, probably D tier in my eyes. She can still be super effective in other aspects, but that's probably what I'm thinking. Now, moving on to Talon. Grey Talon. I like to call him the babushka, even though that means grandma, I'm pretty sure, in Russian. But the babushka, let's see. Grey Talon's damage output, still insane. He has a cross-map execute ultimate that grants him more spirit power, plus 10 whenever he gets a kill or an assist within a certain duration. I mean, he has playmaking potential once he gets his ultimate anywhere on the map, which is insane if you think about it from that perspective. This character, once he gets his ultimate, can essentially be in every single lane with the pressure of being able to kill somebody. Do you understand? Like, that's insane amount of pressure that I think a lot of people don't take that into perspective, of that he could be anywhere on the map with the potential to get an elim on you and send you back to a respawn screen. And I think that mechanic alone makes him extremely good. Also, his trap, really good in my eyes. The curse trap is very nice. His arrow, extremely strong if you have your spirits stacked up. So this character all around is always going to be constantly scaling. Again, but the issue about this character in my eyes, to where he's not necessarily might be the best, is how your team operates. I think he is super team dependent. You have to have a solid foundation. You have to have a solid front line. You have to have a solid semi, midish line as well. Your brawlers, bruisers, characters that can withstand a little bit more damage to Talon, because Talon is rather squishy. Yes, he has a ton of mobility and everything like that, but if he's hit with a curse or a slowing hex or a knockdown and he doesn't have dispel, which Talons don't typically build, he can get caught out and shut down quite frequently. That's why you have to have teammates kind of surrounding him, allowing this character to scale and have the potential to do pretty much everything. Because I've lost games on Talon where I was super far ahead, but because I was so far ahead, the rest of my team wasn't that far ahead, so my front line got rolled down, and in turn, I got rolled down because I had no one in the front line, everyone was dead. So this character has its really good use cases, pretty much, I say 99% of the time. 1% of the time, your front line just gets ran down and you're just kind of straight out of luck. So I think this character sits around A tier. You could argue for S is perfectly fine, but like I said, when I think of S, I think of best in slot S characters, so the best possible character in said role. I think right now I'm going to put him S for, I guess, the Spirit Boozers or Spirit Nukers, sorry. So I think A right now is perfectly fine, at least for me. Moving on to Haze. Haze is kind of in the same issue to where she's a pick character right now and you're mainly building for your ultimate. And I think she suffers in some aspects. I think she still gets a lot of value with her asphyxiation, her passive, with just raw gun damage. But I think it's another case of where she struggles in other aspects in terms of the rest of the meta, in quotations. She still has her use for getting those side lane picks, going for the carry, or going invis and hunting the Talon, for example. She definitely has those use cases, and I think I put her on the same aspect as C with Apollo, to where she is good in certain scenarios, but she is bad in other scenarios. If you're able to shut down the Haze by building items like Metal Skin, Counterspell, Dispel Magic, Indomitable, those items, this character struggles to find any value, or Disarming Hex as well. This character struggles to find value. If you're not building those counter items, she's going to be getting a ton of value and her stocks start rising. That's the case. If you're able to counter build this character completely falls off. She typically buys Curse and goes into her ultimate. Indomitable counters Curse. So these are things you want to think about. So that's why I kind of put her as C, B tier in the middle. Holiday. I think Holiday is really good. I think Holiday is really, really good. It's the same case with Haze, is that like they're kind of in the same realm because she's a pick character, just like Haze. Haze is looking for a sleep, Holiday's looking for a lasso. You build Indomitable, it kind of negates both her lasso, both the sleep. But the thing is, her barrels right now are extremely strong, especially the 5th ability point, to where she's able to basically instantly throw these and make them a tactical nuke. I think the pressure pretty much for the entire game until enemies start building Indomitable is extremely high in comparison to Haze, because this character does a ton of damage early, mid-game, a ton of damage, more towards the late game depending on what you're building. She starts to struggle just a little bit, but you can easily pivot more into gun if you're struggling with spirit damage, whereas Haze can't, really pivot to spirit as well in comparison to Holiday because her headshot scales well. So I think I'm sitting like A/S tier. For right now, I'll just put her A, but I might move her a little bit later on. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So moving on to Infernus. I think Infernus is really good. I think either building gun, building tanky build, or building for your flame dash, still extremely good. Massive AoE ultimate, does a lot of damage. He has high sustained damage. He's pretty hard to kill. He has really good, excellent area denial abilities with his flame dash and his ultimate. I think especially with characters that are more tanky, like your Billy, your Abrams, your Bebop, the characters with the bigger hitboxes that, it just allows Infernus to really do a lot of damage, especially with the recent changes to his bullet growth. Went from 3 to 4, so it's easier for him to hit shots now, and he should be proccing Afterburn a lot more consistently and frequently, allowing for the character to rack up a ton of damage. So I think he's probably sitting around the A tier. Could be maybe by the B tier, in between A and B, but for right now I'll put him A. And like I said, I'll adjust it a little bit. Ivy. What do I think of Ivy? I like Ivy. I think Ivy's really good. I think she's a very good support. You can kind of build her more into the spirit leaning side with her ultimate. Think about Lightning Scroll, Alk Fire, Vortex Web, that build. You can also lean into the double stone form stun, which is also really good. She can kind of build a pseudo gun build as well, but traditionally or more recently, you're more looking towards a support build. I think though, when I think about what the current meta is right now, evolving into, to where you're mainly thinking about the third urn fight and doing mid-boss, Ivy maybe struggle in some aspect to get a ton of damage out, and you might want another character in that slot, whether it's a Viscus or a Realm, for example, in terms of your support, because they provide more utility for the rest of the team. I think Ivy is in a case where she's good, she's not necessarily terrible, but she's alright. I think she sits more towards like the C realm, so CB. This area BC is kind of good, but not necessarily bad. B is like good, bad, but leaning more towards good a little bit. C is like not necessarily amazing, not necessarily bad, but all right as well. It's kind of what I'm thinking for Ivy. Then moving on to Kelvin. Kelvin in my eyes is in the same realm as well. I think Kelvin is in the same case to where his healing output isn't good enough to match Realm or even Viscus. The utility provided kind of, I think the character's good, whether you're trying to build damage or trying to lean more towards support with utility. I think this character's alright. I don't think they're amazing, but like I think he's alright. I think he might be niche. Like he has his moments, but not all the time in my eyes. That's kind of what I'm thinking, at least. Lady Geist. What do I think of Lady Geist? Lady Geist, she's good. I will say that. Depending on how you build her, she performs well at all stages of the game. I think the strengths is that she has consistent damage. She has a ton of good survivability with her ultimate. I think the thing she struggles the most about is that some of the other M1 carries, in quotation, kind of outperform her, like Warden, Mirage, 7, Venator, and those aspects kind of outperform Geist. But I think Geist, if you're not going to be playing her as a carry, and you're thinking her more as a bruiser, like a team like Buffingers or Loki W are utilizing her as more of a bruiser brawler hybrid character, to where they're like a frontline mix character, I think she has really good chances of being extremely good. Well, I think it's another case to where there's certain scenarios to where she's really good. If those scenarios aren't present, she struggles to find a ton of value. Like I said, typically you build her a gun. You don't want to build her a spirit because she's better with gun overall. But of course, if you have too many spirit users on your team, you could build her spirit. I think for me, she sits B tier. That's probably what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking. Lash, I think is good all the time, pretty much. It's the same thing as the last tier list. It's where he's good in pretty much every scenario. Really good for single picks, really good for multiple picks, strong mobility, can do a lot of damage. You can still build him gun despite gun on him being nerfed. The character still performs extremely well. So I think A tier is fine. McGinnis. So some people are lowering McGinnis. She got some nerfs that made her a little bit weaker in terms of her turret and her ultimate just a little bit. But I think this character is a very good still. I think the nerfs, some people will say that the nerfs were big enough to move her down quite a few tiers, but I think this character is still really, really good. I think she's B tier. Like, what she offers and what she provides to the table in terms of the urn fight and mid-boss fights is too significant to pass up on. But if you if I'm talking about beginners like that, you have to think about Ivy with her Stone Form, or these two as well. But I think like she's still really good. Like the turrets are annoying. Like a strong McGinnis with turrets gets very irritating very fast. So this is what I'm kind of thinking for her in this B, C tier realm. Probably me, at least. Mina. I think Mina's still really good. She got some nerfs. Nothing crazy. Just a little bit to her ultimate. Instead of building ultimate with this character now you just lean more towards Love Bites and her Rake. And that's really about it. She pretty much built the character the same way, except for some builds will have you lean more towards a Surge of Power buy for your Rake. Don't necessarily need to buy it though, but can be useful in a lot of different scenarios. I think the character is fine. Nothing wrong with her. Probably S tier, I would say. For sure. Mirage. Mirage. He's good. Lane priority is good. He's your duelist. The one character that wants to take duels on the side of the map. Get you lane prio. So I think probably A. People forget how impactful this character can be. Just fixing lanes, getting super strong. With him TPing around, he gets super ahead and just can do a lot for the rest of the team while they're fighting. I think a really strong Mirage about 20 minutes will win you the game most of the time, or lead you to easier chances of winning. So Mohammed and Kareem, it's another one of those things to where I think they're a niche pick. I think there's certain ways he is really good. Again, he's kind of like Holiday, he's kind of like Haze, he's kind of like Paradox, he's kind of like Bebop. He's a pick character. He's looking for picks, and there's certain scenarios where he's good, certain scenarios where he's bad. I think it's another cases of where it's a niche. Can be good, but he's not necessarily the best. But when he's strong, if that makes sense. This is kind of what I view it as, right? Is a niche pick. So Paige. I think Paige is good. I don't think she's amazing though. She has a ton of utility, but the issue with Paige is that you have characters like Rem and Viscus and even Sinclair, for example, in supportive roles, if you're building Sinclair support. Those characters excel a lot more than Paige, but I don't think Paige is a terrible character at all. I think she has a ton of utility. Her shielding scaling is a lot better now. Her ultimate's a lot better. And I think the util providing this character is also a lot better. The only issue is I believe she's a bucket 1 character. She doesn't have the best stamina. And she does struggle. Like if she gets jumped on, she's usually just dead. And like I said, the meta that you're kind of this death balling around character can excel in those scenarios, but like if you're playing against certain pick characters, she kind of falls off. But I don't think she's down here. I think she's about C. Like, again, I can move that around. Kind of what I'm thinking, at least. Yeah, probably. Moving on to Paradox. So Paradox, I think Paradox is really good still. I don't think there's really a scenario, or most scenarios, to where she's bad at all. See if I pull up my notes. She thrives in what the meta currently is. The Echo Shard build is extremely strong and can easily overwhelm grouped enemies. She's strong in team fights, she's strong at getting a pick, and she's really good at getting objectives. She can easily nuke walkers and shrines with the double bomb, and just provides a good amount of utility overall. Again, probably more leaning towards the A tier. There's a lot of characters hovering this A tier that I think are just always good. So probably around the A is what I would say. Again, I'll do one last change of everything. Moving on to Pocket. Pocket, I mean, Pocket's just really good. All the time, pretty much. He's still one of the strongest heroes in the game because of his Affliction. The well-placed ultimate can single-handedly decide a team fight, especially around earn objectives. He also excels at roaming, finding picks and snowballing leads The hero has a very high skill ceiling, but the more games you put in the pocket, the stronger the hero becomes. I will say the only weaknesses he has is he can be a little bit more challenging to understand and learn, and you have to understand map rotations a little bit more. But I think for right now, I'm just going to put him A, and I might move him around a little bit later. Rem, I think Rem is S tier. I think this character is very good. A ton of healing. A lot of the changes that he got are insane. He has the best healing in the game. He has incredible utility, excellent map presence and control with his Rem tunnels, and he has super strong objective impact because of his ultimate, both on the urn, the mid boss, and just overall. But of course, the weakness is pretty obvious. He relies on teammates to live, to escape, and for his teammates to do damage to win the game. But I still think he sits around the S tier. In my eyes, that's probably what I think. So moving on to 7, I think 7 with the changes is a lot weaker now. I don't think he's terrible in any regard. I still think he's excellent in certain ways. His ultimate just completely usually will win you the urn fight, but I don't think urn until the 3rd urn is that impactful, and by that time your support players or your players that are leaning more towards supports or people in general should have their knockdowns by then, and that character will start to fall off a little bit. But with that being said, I think he still sits around the B tier in my eyes, probably. So Shiv will always be good in my eyes until they mess with bloodletting or they actually mess with his numbers properly. So the character's A tier easily, in no regard. Silver, I think Silver, despite the changes she got, and those changes she got were pretty much a nothing burger in my eyes, I think she's still really good. She still does a lot of damage. She still is super oppressive in laning phase. She still transforms, gets all of her HP back. You can build her spirit or you can build her gun. Yes, you can build her spirit, and she actually scales with spirit extremely well. She has her ultimate, she gets resets, and I think this character probably still A S tier in my eyes. Sinclair is another one of those niche picks. The character is fundamentally, he's a very good character, a very strong character. But he's a niche pick, and why I emphasize fundamentally is because the character relies on who you're playing against. If you're playing against characters with good ultimate abilities, then the character, like Sinclair, will look like the best character in the entire game because he can pop those ultimates extremely fast and hop them off cooldown all the time. The issue is there's not a lot of Sinclair players out there, and the character will struggle in those aspects if he doesn't get the matchup he wants. So I put him in the niche category as he's good, but there's a few exceptions to where he's needed to understand him fully. Then moving on to Venator. I think Venator is probably the best M1 right now. Maybe debatable with Warden because how tanky Warden is. But I think it's probably Ven in terms of damage and in terms of, you know, every other aspect as well. I think probably S. Moving on to Viktor. So I still think Viktor's really strong and can be played a lot of the time. I think you either build him gun. Yes, they nerfed his gun and scaling, but his gun is still pretty good if you just build him pretty much the same way. It doesn't scale as hard, but it still scales well. Or you can build him spirit like you used to. They tweaked some of the spirit numbers on him, so overall still pretty good. But I would put him maybe A tier, maybe B tier. Kind of what I'm thinking. So Vindicta. So Vindicta is another one of those characters that are like the pick characters that I talk about. Haze, Paradox, Holiday, those characters. I think the character right now, she's good, but she's not amazing. I think like C, probably for me. Yeah. Viscous, I think Viscous is really good. I think he's very, very good, and people don't understand how good he is. So put him A. A ton of damage with Splatter. His cube purges all non-ultimate debuffs at the last or the 5th ability point. His ultimate's pretty good for a lot of AoE, escape, and everything of the sort. Splatter does a lot of damage, like I said, in laning phase, mid game, and late game. His punch, his battle punch is useful for mobility, can be useful in other scenarios where you're just trying to do an excess amount of damage. So in that aspect, also really good. So I think he's just A tier, to say the least. A lot of A tier characters. Vyper. They haven't really changed Vyper. I think she's still really good. Put her A. Warden. Warden is also really good in the case of how you build the character, how tanky they are. You can build them more ultimate based now with lightning scroll and stuff like that, and we'll still get a lot of benefit from all the utility the character has to offer. So probably A tier. Yeah, A tier is fine. Wraith. Wraith is, in my opinion, not the best in this circumstance. I think the character demands so much farm in comparison to a lot of the other characters, like Infernus, Warden, Venator. I think this character takes so much to get online that if you're able to shut her down early game and just maintain shutting her down and keeping her under wraps, the character will won't find any value. Her only escape option is a TP that can be shut down with slowing hex, and it'll go on a very long cooldown. So in that aspect, you have a lot of characters right now, like Calico, Celeste, Doorman, Holiday, a lot of these characters that roam around the map a lot. And I think Wraith, finds it hard to get a ton of value because of the characters that are so strong right now. In that aspect, if that makes sense. So probably leaning more towards like B, C tier. Like, I would rather have like Warden, Mirage, Mina, Venator, other M1 characters before I think about getting a Wraith. Yamato, still really good in my eyes. I think she requires certain circumstances to really excel. And I think another reason why she's so strong is that people in MM don't really understand how to shut down this character. It's curse and, other items, mainly curse though. They find it hard to shut down this character because they don't really understand how to coordinate. So I still think she remains towards the top. But for some of our last second changes, I don't like putting characters like I said, I don't like putting a lot of characters in the S tier category because it doesn't really make sense in my eyes in terms of a tier list. S tier is like the best of the best characters, if that makes sense. Like, you can't have like 10 characters in like the best ever, because there's some characters that will overshine or outshine some of the other ones. But like I said, let me know what you think about this tier list in the comments down below. But for the other S tier, I might put Billy, because I think he's so high priority in terms of when you're looking at Night Shift and how often he's picked in high elo games. And usually the people that have a Billy on their team end up winning because of how tanky and how strong this frontliner is, in my eyes. Like I said, I don't like putting a ton of characters in the S tier because it kind of defeats the purpose of a tier list in my eyes. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like I said, you can let me know what you think in the comments down below. I always love to hear your opinions. Like I said, this is a tier list video. Opinions are always welcome. Everybody's going to have their own opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. Usually just a discussion-based video. So, yeah, let me know. I hope you guys have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.